The phrase "worst year ever" gets thrown around a lot these days, mostly on the internet, for reasons like being disappointed by the latest Star Wars movie. However, scientists and historians have argued that no year in the long history of our planet was worse than the year 536. While there have certainly been many contenders for the worst year ever throughout history, no year has had a more measurable negative impact on the decades that followed. Today, we'll explain why the year 536 was the worst year to be alive. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Wanda Discoveries channel and leave a comment letting us know what piece of history you'd like us to cover. Now let's settle this once and for all. 536, the worst year ever. While serving as a military advisor to Belisarius, one of the Byzantine Empire's most distinguished generals, Byzantine historian Procopius noticed something troubling in the air. While traveling with his boss in Sicily in 536, he wrote of a sun that gave off light without brightness, like the moon throughout the year. He described it as appearing like the sun was in eclipse, its beams not clear, unlike those it typically emitted. Translated, it meant that it was dark outside all the time. He, of course, wasn't the only one who noticed the sun seemed off during 536. Michael the Syrian, a Byzantine scribe, later wrote of this period, stating that the sun became dark, and its darkness lasted for 18 months. Each day it shone for about 4 hours, but even then, the light was only a feeble shadow. Everyone declared that the sun would never regain its full light. The fruits didn't ripen, and the wine tasted like sour grapes. This strange sun situation cast a literal dark cloud over the world, darkening the sky for at least a full year in 536. Researchers later discovered evidence of a massive volcanic eruption whose ash likely contributed to the Seattle-like weather, minus all the rain, spreading ash and destruction globally. Not to mention, it made the grapes sour and the wine undrinkable, so that's a point against the year 536. Basic biology teaches us that plants need the sun to grow and survive, so not having direct sunlight for a whole year did serious damage to crop output worldwide and sparked a widespread famine. And it wasn't just that the plants needed their sunshine, it was also too cold for crops to grow. With the sun hidden behind an endless cloud, Earth's temperature dropped by 1.6 to 2.5 degrees Celsius, 34.8 to 36.5 degrees Fahrenheit. For Americans, that might not sound so bad, but it also cooled temperatures for decades to come. Crop shortages were reported widely during this time, including in Ireland, where they suffered from what they called bread failure, a major food crisis. A dusty veil covering the sun wasn't the only bad thing in the air for these people just trying to get by in 536. There was also a plague or two waiting to strike their vitamin D-deprived immune systems. No one was immune to this plague, which spread from the lower classes all the way to the imperial palace. The symptoms, as it was described, began with a sore that formed on the palm of the hand and progressed until the afflicted couldn't walk. The legs swelled, the sores burst, and pus came out. If this same plague were to infect the world today, it would probably have a TV show called Dr. Bebo's Pus Buster, with a new contender for the worst year to be alive. As the plague spread through Constantinople, the city began to stink, with piles of sick, dead bodies being thrown into the sea, only to resurface later. There wasn't much burial planning going on back then. "Bring out your dead" became a more wing-it vibe. Emperor Justinian ordered the bodies to be removed from the city. But all this did was expose more people to the disease, as healthy individuals were tasked with moving the sickly dead bodies out of the city. Things weren't all bad for Emperor Justinian, though. The plague that took so many lives and made the city a smelly nightmare was later named the Plague of Justinian, which probably helped his legacy, but not so much for the estimated 50 million who died from it. Around 536, China's climate began to spiral into chaos, exhibiting perfectly normal behaviors like raining dust you could scoop by the handful. Not only shouldn't it rain dust, but it certainly shouldn't be measurable by the scoop. A 6th century chronicle reported yellow ash-like substances falling from the sky, which they called abuech, or dust, and they said it was yellow in color. Whether this was volcanic ash or some random, unexplained climate shift isn't known. Regardless, this was only the beginning of climate disruption in China. The chronicles of the southern dynasties reported a rare summer-winter weather event with frost in midsummer and snow in August, like a Southern California girl in Chicago in January. Crops didn't know how to handle this cold snap, and summer crops were destroyed. The city of Shingo, along with others, was thrown into a deadly famine that lasted 2 years, resulting in the deaths of 70 to 80% of the population. Researchers later found evidence deep in the ice sheets of Iceland and Greenland, indicating a major volcanic event around 536. Volcanic eruptions in Iceland in 540 and 547 threw people into what could be called the Dark Ages, with ash blocking out the sun. Some scholars have suggested that a volcano in El Salvador erupted around 535 or 536. Others pointed to a volcanic eruption in North America as contributing to the dark skies worldwide. When combined with the 2 Icelandic eruptions, it kicked off what was later dubbed the Late Antique Little Ice Age. This mini ice age cooled the planet for at least a decade, resulting in crop deaths and, subsequently, people dying from starvation or malnutrition, which made them more susceptible to diseases, of which there were plenty. As for volcanoes, one thing certainly didn't have a bad year: exploding volcanoes. By the 6th century, the Roman Empire had moved east to Constantinople, and under Emperor Justinian, the Romans tried to revive the empire's former glory, much like a high school graduate who still hangs around campus in their Letterman jacket. Some of Justinian's generals, notably Belisarius, were successful, fighting against various armies, including the Goths and Vandals. However, Justinian himself couldn't replicate this success due to constant uprisings and imperial instability. These pesky uprisings always interfered with progress. To add insult to injury, the Byzantine Empire would never fully recover from the disease and famine sparked by the events of 536. The Byzantine Empire lost between 35 to 55% of its population by 541 when the bubonic plague hit, and did what the plague does best: killed large portions of populations. Historians believe the plague might have been spread by rats infested with the plague, hitching rides on military campaigns attempting to restore the Roman Empire's peak, which clearly backfired. The horrors of 536 didn't discriminate. The Moche civilization in Peru wouldn't look back on 536 as a banner year either. The Moche were known for being avid fishermen and for their advanced irrigation system that supported various crops. These agricultural talents were the backbone of their economy, but weather conditions in the 6th century devastated their economy. During this period, a strong El Niño weather system warmed the waters and decimated the fish supply. This freak weather system also caused heavy flooding that ruined their irrigation systems and wiped out their ability to grow enough food. People, tired of hearing Twitter users claim X was the worst year ever, decided to settle the matter once and for all. Harvard historian Michael McCormick and a group of scholars took on the age-old question of what the worst year to be alive really was. Initially, McCormick's group of 12 interdisciplinary scholars didn't intend to answer this question, as they were studying metal usage, coinage, and changes in 7th century monetary systems. But in the process, they discovered volcanic fragments from an Icelandic volcano and ice core samples from Swiss glaciers dating back to 536, confirming the volcanic event that plunged much of the northern hemisphere into darkness, setting off a global catastrophe. In 1998, both Armageddon and Deep Impact were released, and people had to choose which of the 2 asteroid-based action movies they preferred. It was a tough year. The planet left behind plenty of evidence of climate trauma, which led to real human suffering. Remember, we only have one Earth. Please recycle. Dendrochronologists, people who study tree rings to determine a tree's age, noticed disturbing patterns when examining Icelandic trees. The rings showed a period when tree growth slowed, suggesting a significant cool-down occurred around the mid-6th century. Combined with newly unearthed ice core evidence from 2018, this helped date the catastrophic event to 536. While the research for the worst year to be alive began bleakly, it ended on a positive note. Researchers from Harvard also found signs of recovery. While the events of 536 marked some of the darkest days in history, they also noticed that by studying coinage, the reappearance of lead in ice core samples indicated that people were once again producing silver for money. Ah, capitalism, the lifeblood of us all. Experts argued that the prevalence of silver meant more coins were produced, signaling a thriving economy. The takeaway? As bad as things may seem, they almost always get better. Almost always. So, what do you think? Would you want to take a time machine and play the ultimate game of Survivor? Let us know in the comments below and check out some of these other videos from Wanda Discoveries.